Okay, so today we're going to connect a fundamental chess skill, one that honestly gets ignored way too often, with the incredible science of how our brains actually build expertise. We're talking about the endgame, and we're going to look at what really happens inside a master's mind when the board gets simpler but the stakes get, well, incredibly high. You know, this quote from the book 100 Endgames You Must Know just hits the nail on the head. For so many of us, the endgame is where a hard fought game just slips away. You can play a brilliant opening, have a masterful middle game, but if you're shaky when there are only a few pieces left, you are going to leak points. It's like the final exam of chess, and most people just haven't studied for it. And you can totally see why, right? I mean, everyone loves studying flashy openings and wild tactical combinations. That's the fun stuff. But the end game, that can feel like work. It's quiet, it's subtle, and yet this is the phase of the game that so often decides who actually wins.
But here's the thing. This neglect, it creates this incredible opportunity for you. Because so many people ignore it, truly mastering the endgame is one of the most direct, straightforward ways to become a stronger player. While your opponents are busy memorizing some obscure opening line they might never use, you can be learning the fundamental principles that actually win games.
So, let's get concrete. We're going to zoom in on one of the most important patterns in all of chess. This is the concept of key squares and pawn endings. Think of this as a foundational building block, a real cornerstone of endgame mastery. So, what are key squares? Honestly, think of them like a cheat code for the endgame. They're a very specific set of squares that are tied to your pawn's position. And if you can get your king to any one of these squares, the game is over. You have a forced win. It just transforms a potentially complex calculation into a simple, single goal. And the rule itself is just beautifully simple. For a pawn that hasn't crossed the middle of the board yet, like this one here on d4, the key squares are simply the three squares 2 ranks in front of it. So in this case, that's c6, d6, and e6. That's it. That's your entire plan. Get your king to one of those three squares, and that pawn will, inevitably, become a queen. And once your king lands on that key square, victory follows this clear, repeatable procedure. You just bring your king up to support the pawn. Then you use your king's body to physically push the opponent's king out of the way. It's a move we call shouldering, and then you just walk your pawn home. It becomes almost automatic. All right, so we've covered the what, the chess lesson itself. Now we get to the really fascinating part, the how. How does an expert's brain see this pattern so differently from the rest of us? And what does neuroscience tell us about learning itself? This is the question, isn't it? It's what separates amateurs from masters. A beginner might have to slowly try to recall the rule, count the squares, calculate the moves. But a grandmaster? They just see it, instantly, in a fraction of a second. I mean, how is that even possible? Well, the secret is that they don't just have a faster processor in their head. It's that their brain is literally running different software. Through thousands and thousands of hours of practice, they've stored tens of thousands of these patterns, or chunks, in their long-term memory. So they aren't calculating a solution from scratch, they are recognizing it. This whole key square concept is one of those chunks. And we can actually see this in brain scans. There was a 2021 study that looked at the brains of high-level and low-level players while they were solving difficult endgames. The high-level players, they showed higher alpha EEG power, which is basically linked to a more relaxed, efficient, and focused mental state. Their heart rates and stress levels were also lower. They were calm and they were efficient. The lower-level players, well, their brains were working overtime and their bodies were way more stressed out. So the crucial point is this. Mastery isn't about brute force. It's about elegance. The expert brain has created these amazing neural shortcuts. When it sees a familiar pattern, like a key square position, it doesn't need to burn a ton of energy thinking. It just pulls up the right file from memory and executes the plan. It's cognitive efficiency at its absolute peak. Okay, so that's the goal, right? But how do we get there? How do we build these neural shortcuts ourselves and turn that conscious, clunky knowledge into that lightning-fast intuition? Just look at this. This is a position from the World Championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Sergei Karyakin. The pressure is absolutely immense. The clock is ticking down. In moments like these, there is no time to go back to basics and calculate from scratch. Their actions are driven by a lifetime of recognizing these fundamental patterns, like key squares, almost instantly. It's pure intuition, forged in the fires of practice. And here we arrive at the paradox of how you build that incredible speed. This wonderful quote from 100 Endgames really reveals the secret. The author says he explains the endings slowly, and he recommends that they be studied slowly. You don't get fast by rushing, you get fast by being deliberate.
And really, this is the core idea. You have to patiently, deliberately, and slowly burn these patterns into your brain. You study the why behind the key square rule until it becomes second nature. You solve these puzzles over and over until you don't even have to think about them anymore. That slow, focused work, that is what rewires your brain and builds the neural shortcuts for instant recognition.
Ultimately, this isn't just about chess. This is about how we learn anything complex, whether it's playing a musical instrument, learning a new language, or developing a professional skill. It's all about identifying the fundamental key squares of your field and practicing them slowly and deliberately until they become a part of who you are, until they become effortless intuition. So the question to leave you with is, what patterns will you master next?